Nigeria gets $3.35 billion from International Monetary Fund's $650 billion special drawing rights. Federal government is developing 43 free trade zones across the country, calls for private sector participation. Asia stocks rise after private survey shows growth in China's services activity. Plus, oil drops for third day on concerns that COVID-19 variant spread may cut demand. This is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. Good to have you join us on the business side of life, and we'll start by telling you that a World Bank study around the globe showed that privately managed economic zones have been more profitable with greater economic impact than public zones. This meeting of stakeholders in trade and investment is aimed at identifying the opportunities in 43 free trade zones being developed across the country, with a call for private sector participation.
The federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, is committed to the pursuit of implementing the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan. I wish to call on the private sector to key into the enormous opportunities that are credible with investment at the free trade zones. The challenges are no doubt very daunting, but equally not insurmountable. I'm confident that with the support and resilience, we will be able to offer the best of the world to the development of the various sectors of our economy, using the right technology as well as conforming with the rules and international best practices.
The Board of Governors of the International Monetary Fund has approved a general allocation of special drawing rights (SDRs) equivalent to $650 billion to boost global liquidity. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said that the historic decision is the largest SDR allocation in the history of the IMF and a shot in the arm for the global economy at a time of unprecedented crisis. She explained that the SDR allocation will benefit all members, address the long-term global need for reserves, build confidence, and foster the resilience and stability of the global economy. It will particularly help most vulnerable countries struggling to cope with impact of COVID-19 crisis. The general allocation of SDRs will become effective on August 23, 2021. The newly created SDRs will be credited to IMF member countries in proportion to their existing quotas in the IMF fund. Meanwhile, Nigeria will be allocated about $3.35 billion out of the special drawing rights allocation of the International Monetary Fund, IMF. About $275 billion of the new allocation will go to emerging markets and developing countries, including low-income countries. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said that the fund will continue to engage actively with members to identify viable options for vulnerable channeling of SDRs from wealthier to poorer and more vulnerable member countries to support their pandemic recovery and achieve resilient and sustainable growth. Reuters had reported that the SDR allocation could see Nigeria's external reserves rising by as much as 20%. Naira remained stable against the US dollar at the investors and exporters window on Tuesday to close at 411 naira 50 kobo a dollar. This was the same rate when compared to 411 naira 50 kobo a dollar recorded on Monday. Let's see how the naira is exchanging for other currencies. The amended Finance Act 2020 has recognized the Nigeria Postal Services as the statutory authority to produce and collect stamp duties in Nigeria. Abdurrahman Usman Jibrila reports that this is coming as the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy unveils the official NIPOST revenue stamp.
This is the official unveiling of the NIPOST revenue stamp. The new NIPOST Transport and Logistics Company Microfinance Bank has some revenue sources on the way, which the Minister of Communication says are efforts to upgrade the agency to a world-class standards.
In addition to that, we also have a plan of NIPOST Property and Development Company. This is a company that will bring together all the properties of NIPOST, develop them, and make sure that government is generating revenue from them.
The bill to repeal the Nigerian Postal Service Act and reenact the Nigerian Postal Commission as past third reading of both chambers.
Through stamps, NIPOST has documented Nigeria's history, educating and preserving our national heritage, among others.
With the unveiling of the revenue stamp, NIPOST is finally free from all forms of constraints to execute its mandate for better service delivery.
Now to the meat of the day. As the federal government moves to widen its revenue base, tax is identified as one area that the country can leverage on to raise the needed funds to drive infrastructural development. Joining me is Professor Abdullahi Danjuma Zubairu to discuss on achieving effective tax administration for inclusive development in the country. Professor, you're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much.
Talking about tax, which so many people believe that is what is needed to get the economy to get to recover faster as it should from the effects of the pandemic. Looking at the informal sector of the Nigeria's economy, which is the largest, that particular sector is yet to be covered by the tax net. What can be done to achieve this?
Well, thank you very much. It's good to know in the first instance that the only permanent source of income to any nation at all is tax.
Yeah.
And if we so believe on that, because we look at our big countries, America, UK, and the rest, they are much dependent on tax than any other source of revenue. However, record has it globally that the informal sector is not even tapped absolutely. But in Nigeria so far, efforts have been made in several circumstances by the government to actually give reliefs to this informal sector so that it can enhance their potentials. They can also grow to a higher level of tax payment. If you look at the company income tax, for instance, which used to be a proportionate system of tax, now the government had made it that is no longer proportionate, it's progressive this time around. So within the range of income turnover between 0 to 25 million, they are exonerated from payment of tax. Their tax level is 0. This will give them more income to enhance their business so that they can jump up to. Yeah.
Prof, sorry to cut in. Are you saying the informal sector as it is today in Nigeria, particularly the MSMEs, have not grown to that level that they should be taxed to help in?
Yeah, if you classify SMEs, it depends on the nature of the business of the SMEs itself.
Yes, I would like you to define.
Now, if
those
the SMEs
who should enjoy such leverage and those who should be able to,
yeah, we should also identify the fact that the Nigerian tax system has personal income tax and companies income tax.
Sure.
So if a company is registered by CAC, that is incorporated, it means it is under the ambit of companies income tax. So within the range of that profile, from 0 turnover to 25 million naira turnover, by law, with the act that you have said earlier on,
the Finance Act,
yes, gives them the privilege to pay taxes at 0%. Between the range of 25 to 100 million, the law says they will pay 20%. If you graduate to anything in excess of 100 million, you will pay 30%. That will give the companies in this perspective more income, and their horizon for operations will increase. And as the increase comes in, they will have much profit earnings that will increase their equity participation in any business they are in. But on the other side, registration of business, those ones comes under the income of personal income tax. Those ones majorly they have been administered by the respective states. I hope we're together.
Yeah.
So the respective states, their tax liability goes to the states, and we classify them as what? Direct assessment that we do from time to time by the state governments.
Okay, at this level, COVID-19 has thrown a whole lot of people into poverty.
Sure.
And government actually needs this tax to help recover the economy. What other means do you think the government can actually get these revenues still within the tax net?
Yes, you see, tapping tax revenue entails a lot of things. Now, the COVID-19 had given some I've given businesses some restriction as to a kind of performance. But however, does not mean that it's absolutely zero. They would have made to the extent they could within the contents of whatever they have been producing. But as it is the collection of tax revenue is not an easy matter. And it entails that the revenue authority has to do more. And we have been seeing all the proactive things the Federal Inland Revenue Service is putting in place to actually ease compliance by these taxpayers.
Yes, we have the recently introduced tax administration solution, that is the
Tax Pro Max.
How effective is that? Or is that the beginning of the
It has just started. And we are hopeful that it will work well. You know, because it has all these forms of filing. That is to say that at the press of a button, you can easily file your returns, as against what it used to be, that you have to create papers, you have to go to this place, go to that place,
from this point to another point, from this table
and
to another table.
That is a burden, you know, it's a burden. It actually will give remorse to taxpayers as to how to do it and where to go and how to go.
So now, from the comfort of your room,
yes, when
you can make payments,
I said
also
from the
get
press
receipts.
of a button, you can easily get to where you are. And you collect your receipt, you will not face any embarrassment by everybody. Your TCC will be there before you. Everything will be at just the tip of a press of your button and your system, and you get it.
Now, Prof, how does imports and exports affect tax collection or enhance?
Imports, naturally, you know what we call, when you import, that is bringing in.
The duties.
The duties, okay. The issue therein is that when you make capital importation, you understand, you pay naturally, it depends on the commodity, you actually pay VAT on them. And when you do pay VAT, it naturally will go to the federal government coffers, and it will go through the process of distribution as government has it with a formula of 15-50-35. Are we together?
Yeah.
So if that happens, it means it will enhance the revenue. And again, our customs service, you know, they also do collections with respect to imports. And exports, there are commodities that are free from any form of taxation at all.
Particularly with the development of the economic processes.
And you know that one naturally would have earned us foreign exchange, foreign trade activities, and it will enhance in our trade balance with other countries.
Now, Prof, who should enjoy tax incentives? Who should enjoy tax waivers?
As it is much earlier on, up to this time, we have made to understand that there are certain sectors of the economy that requires a kind of incentive, much incentive. Like the pioneer legislation, which had even been in place since 1971, has been in practice. You understand? And that gives a tax holiday for such sectors, for development of such sectors. But the only advice I will also give in that perspective is that all the income that will be generated within the context of that period, at the first instance, first 3 years, thereafter, an increase of, by the law provides for an increase of 2 years, which can come en bloc or piecemeal. What I mean by piecemeal is that after 1 year, you apply for another 1 year for that. And it is the Federal Executive Council that approves of such pioneer status. And by the only problem in place is that if a taxpayer is being relieved of payment of tax within that period, but the issue of allowing him again capital allowance, you understand, when there are capital expenditure, the law also provides, as it is now, that such capital expenditure should not enjoy capital allowance within the holiday period, but it will be postponed until a day after the holiday period. That is the commencement date
of the payment.
Yes.
Okay, Prof, before I let you go, what do you think government should do to encourage citizens to pay tax willingly without going through certain measures?
There are so many issues, so many. The first thing is tax education.
Okay.
The taxpayer should be made to understand why he has to pay tax. Because you see, no government comes in place, or no president, no governor, no anybody comes in place with his own personal money to spend for the populace. So it is we that will have to provide the government to do their activities of governance.
Thank you so very much, Professor Abdullahi Danjuma, for sharing your thoughts with us on the better ways to tax and be taxed for revenue generation and infrastructure development.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, moving on, gold flat as investors await direction from U.S. jobs data. Let's take a trip to the commodities market. Oil prices fell for a third day on Wednesday on mounting concerns that the increasing spread of the Delta variant of the coronavirus in top consuming countries will cut fuel supply. Brent crude oil futures slid 57 cents to trade at $71.82 per barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude fell 79 cents to $69.78 per barrel. Both futures fell on Tuesday to their lowest since July 21st before regaining some ground by the close of day. The United States and China, the world's two biggest oil consumers, are grappling with rapidly spreading outbreaks of the highly contagious Delta variant that analysts fear will limit fuel demand at a time when it traditionally rises in both countries. Asia stocks rise after private survey shows growth in China's services activity. Bosede Abel is joining me now for details on the global market. Bosede, is over to you.
Thank you very much, Benny. So the rapid rise in Delta variant COVID-19 infections on the global scene is keeping optimism contained. In Europe, markets advanced on Wednesday as strong U.S. corporate earnings boosted global sentiment. DAX rose 0.71% to close 15,665.22. FTSE 0.39% at 7,133.36, and CAC 40 also topped 0.52%. Shares in major Asia-Pacific market rose on Wednesday as a private survey showed accelerating Chinese services activity growth in July. Mainland Chinese stocks closed higher, with the Shanghai Composite gaining 0.85% to close 3,477.22. Hang Seng Index also topped 0.88% at 26,426.55, while the Nikkei dipped 0.21% to close 27,584.08. In the United States, investors will be keeping an eye on employment data being released by Automatic Data Processing (ADP) on Wednesday. However, in the regular trading session, the Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 278.24 points. The S&P 500 topped 35.99 points at 4,423.15, and the Nasdaq Composite also appreciated 0.55% to close 14,761.29. African markets were mostly negative. Nairobi's oil share is still maintaining previous figures. Tunisia's Tunidex is also low at 0.26%, while Namibia's overall index, Ghana's GSE Composite, and South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 were positive. That's the global market review, Benny.
Thank you so very much, Bosede, for that update. Moving on, the drive of the federal government towards lifting millions of Nigerians out of poverty and creating millions of jobs is receiving a boost as academic institutions are already keying into the entrepreneurial skills development for students to be self-reliant and employers of labor after school. This was noted at the maiden edition of the locally made products by final year students of the Department of Entrepreneurship Development, Nasarawa State University, KEFI. Suraj Abdullahi reports.
The idea of entrepreneurship is not new trend globally, as it is one of the major stimulants of economic growth and job creation. Recently, Nigeria witnessed a rise in the number of small and medium enterprises supported by government's initiative and social investment programs which deepen the values in the entrepreneurship culture. Nasarawa State University, KEFI, was first among the Committee of Universities to establish Entrepreneurship Development Department, not only on the premise of academic expansion, but also to add value to the nation's economic development by producing students with entrepreneurial skills. This called for the maiden exhibition of the students' made products organized by the Department of Entrepreneurship Development, where different items were displayed.
This is the first university that has entrepreneurship center in this part of the country. So it tells you that the Nasarawa State University is leading.
We don't want students to, after graduation, to lack what to do. So after graduation, they are going to be self-reliant and they are going to be employers of labor themselves.
We teach students reality, and the reality is that they should go into practicals of different skills of their own choice.
The students noted that the skills acquired will not only make them self-reliant, but also employers of labor, as well as creators of wealth.
The Department of Entrepreneurship have to a large extent shaped the ideology and the orientation of the students to think differently.
To have a life after these studies.
The exhibition is an annual event.
Well, that wraps this edition of Business Express. Remember to keep in touch with us by sending in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Be safe out there.